Merry Christmas, right? We got the Christmas season is here, right? So now we can start celebrating and remembering. I think already you're seeing Christmas lights up. Oh, we've even got a tree today, and we know there's going to be lots of decorating happening. How many people have already put up your tree? Ooh! How many people have already put lights out outside your houses, right? Oh my! So, well, we haven't done it yet. So I was looking for some ideas, and so I thought you might appreciate to have a few ideas about what you could do with your Christmas lights at your home. So I put together this little video so that you can get some good ideas. So if you can turn off the lights in the back there, and let's see what we can do with our houses. Get the lights. Irma, can you turn on the lights, please? So, actually, the last one was the one that I was thinking of doing, but we don't have a 2-story house, so I figured, we probably couldn't do that. Actually, there are probably some other reasons, too, that we probably couldn't do that. Probably couldn't pull that one off, yeah. Yeah, so we need to find a new house. Anyone have any suggestions? We're open to suggestions. So let me bring back the PowerPoint here. Yeah. Now there's a house that's ready for
let's decorate the cabin.
Some good decorations there. Here we go. So all the excitement around Christmas, it's a good thing. A good thing. We easily make it a little bit commercial and like that, but actually it is a good time to celebrate. My own life, Jesus has always been a very important part of my life for me. When I was even in middle school, I started developing my relationship with Jesus, and truly, my whole life, Jesus has been kind of like an invisible elder brother for me. Kind of like the elder brother that I could kind of count on, the one who I could talk to, that I could kind of share my heart and my difficulties, and someone who was watching out for me. It's truly profound to have a feeling that someone cares for you, someone loves you, and unconditionally, no matter how many messes and problems and things I got into. I always felt my older brother was looking out for me. Jesus was always there, kind of wanting to take care of me, encourage me, to help me. And so over the years, I developed a real a feeling of gratitude and appreciation and love for Jesus, and felt loved very much by Jesus. So even when I went to college, and in college I was deeply involved with a church for a while, but then at some point I left. I left the church, and later on got more involved into psychology and even Buddhism and Hinduism and meditation and New Age thinking, holistic healing, all those arenas of things. But always Jesus was present with me, always kind of in the background, my support and encouragement. As I hitchhiked around the country, I was all the time just having conversations with Jesus while, is this guy going to pick me up? What do you think? It was just that kind of a casual relationship. When I first studied the Divine Principle, I was the most profound aspect of the Unification Principle teachings are the teachings of Jesus for me. This is what reached my heart the most significantly, touched me and changed me most profoundly, and also is because of the teachings of Jesus that I came to know true Father, Father Moon, the founder of our movement, as the Messiah. Because this was the point. Some people say it's parallels of history, some people say it's the 3 blessings, but for me it was actually understanding deeply about Jesus Christ and his life. One of the shocking things that happened for me was when the first lecture I heard on the mission of the Messiah and understanding about Jesus' life, Dr. Durst gave that. I don't know, maybe you know Dr. Durst, former president of the church, and now lives in the Bay Area. And it was Sunday morning, and he went through a profound presentation about Jesus' life. And I broke down and I just wept. I wept during that. And I felt so sad and so sorry for Jesus. But behind all that, there was also a feeling of I felt I was embarrassed. Because here it's like the soap opera where you have the clueless friend, I have my best friend, he's always there and smiling and friendly for me. But back at home, his life is suffering and going through all kinds of difficulties. But I'm clueless. So here I am, so grateful for Jesus' love and that relationship that I have with him, but totally blind to the deep suffering that Jesus went through in his profound life and life of sacrifice. The same things we do as kids. We look at our parents, and they're, the parents are where I get all my good stuff from. Right? They're the parents I can get the best Christmas presents are going to come from my parents, right? And all those good things. But especially when we're really young, we don't really understand or appreciate the difficulties that our parents go to for our sake, for our benefit. So here, through that understanding of the principle, understanding deeply about who Jesus really was, touched me and changed my life. And it moved me from this kind of shallow, I'm so happy I have my friend who always takes care of me, to actually this friend that I love even more deeply because of his love and his sacrifice and his sacrificial love. So the principle also answered a lot of kind of confusion and that I had about Jesus' life and the traditional Christian viewpoint about Jesus. Recently, Eleanor's been inspired to research the historical Jesus. Actually, we got a couple of books from Reverend Thompson, and we've been reading all this history. Now, Christians typically, it's kind of uncomfortable when you read about the historical version of Jesus versus the biblical version of Jesus. Because the Bible stories, they sometimes don't jive with Jesus' actual, what we can glean from the historical record. And so sometimes the historical Jesus makes people struggle about their faith and struggle with their faith. But actually for us as Unificationists, having the kind of foundation and perspective we have, understanding who Jesus was and his incredible heart, then understand the historical perspective actually fills in. And it's completely consistent with our understanding and our perspective on Jesus and on Jesus' life. So I want to talk just a little bit this morning about that historical context that Jesus came in. We talk in the Unification teachings about the 400 years preparing for Jesus to come and all the things that were done. God raised up the world religions like Buddha and Lao Tzu and Confucius and Socrates and Plato and all these thinkers preparing the world. But actually, when we look closely at the history of Israel, it's pretty tough. I guess when you till the soil, you cause a lot of damage. And actually, the history of Israel is pretty tough. Let's see. There we go. So here's a quick review of the years just before leading up to Jesus. About 160 years before Jesus, they call it the Maccabean Revolt. Up until that time, Israel had been controlled by the Greeks. Alexander the Great, when he conquered that whole area, it included Israel. And the Maccabeans, they actually had a leader who was like a messianic figure who stood up against the influence of Greek culture that was diluting the Jewish Hebrew traditions. And so this big revolt, and it actually took like 20 or 30 years for it to finally kick out the Greeks. So they set up a monarchy, a kingdom. Hasmonean, I think that's how you pronounce it. It was the king that was became the king. Well, in the second generation, the king's sons, there were two sons, Well, already in that family, they had a conflict. Are we familiar with that? Sometimes the sons don't quite follow after the father or the parents. And then there's conflict between these two brothers. And there's actually a civil war broke out in that time. Well, one of the brothers got smart. He figured, well, if I get some help, then I can, win this civil war. So he wisely, or maybe not so wisely, invites the Romans. He says, hey guys, I could use some help here. And the Romans, being the very thoughtful culture that they were, says, oh sure, we'll come and help. Actually, I think the general that later became emperor was Pompey. And he came and he helped them out all right. And basically at that point, Israel and Jerusalem became a protectorate under Roman influence, under Roman control. So that's in 64 BC. So Roman, at that point, starts to have dominion over Israel. Well, in this time, there's lots of opposition to that Roman influence. Again, taking them away from their Hebraic culture. One significant Messiah that came is called Hezekiah. And Hezekiah, he got a whole lot of people involved in attacking the Romans and also the Jewish aristocrats who were collaborating with the Romans. So he proclaimed himself as the Messiah, the one who was going to liberate the people from their oppressor. Well, he caused a lot of trouble for Rome and all over Israel. And until finally one Jew, his name's Herod, he actually was the son of a great general that Julius Caesar recognized and honored. He got together a group and he was able to capture and cut off the head of Hezekiah. So Herod later becomes called Herod the Great because the Romans, they like this guy. This guy, all right, we can handle it. We can use this guy. Because even they have another problem later on with one of the temples, some of the priests and stuff. They send in Herod and he cleans up the act. And so these Romans, they're thrilled with Herod. So the Romans anoint Herod the king of Israel. So that the Romans are saying, he's not the Jewish people, but the Romans say, okay, he is the king of Israel. Interesting thing about Herod is he's maybe third generation Jew. His ancestors weren't Jewish. They were converts. So he was actually a little bit, he was hoping that his son could ultimately be, his children could be the Messiah. But they have to be from the line of David, right? The Messiah is going to come. Well, anyway, he becomes the king of the Jews. And King Herod the Great, during his lifetime, he's totally ruthless and brutal in suppressing any kind of rebellion. In fact, many of you may know the game Whack-A-Mole. You ever seen that? A mole pops up and you hit it with a bat, and then he pops over here and you try to hit it with a bat. And it's a game. See how many. Well, this King Herod the Great, he was a champion at Whack-A-Messiah. He was so brutal and so ruthless that anytime any kind of uprising came, he would quickly wipe them out. Without any compassion, just kill them all. In fact, he had a problem with the leaders in the temple, the Sanhedrin. He went through and he killed them all. And then all the priests, he got rid of all of them and appointed his own. He was ruthless. So for the 30 years of his life, the messiahs kept popping up, but they kept getting whacked. And so that time is actually a relatively peaceful time, especially from the Roman perspective. It is great. Hey, we got a guy, he's in our court. And Herod the Great he built a lot of things, and he was very Roman, very Hellenized. He wanted very much to move Israel into the modern age of Rome. So there was a lot of resentment. When he dies, that strongman power disappears. He has 3 sons, and he divides the nation into the three different parts. And as soon as he's gone, then there's no one to whack these messiahs. So we have a whole bunch of messiahs in 4 BC. When he dies, all kinds of revolts happening all over Israel. It's really a tumultuous time, a bloody time. And it's so bad that eventually, by 6 AD, the Romans have to come in. They bring in their troops to suppress all these messiahs, all these uprisings. And at that point, they take away the son who was responsible for Judea and Jerusalem. They basically kick him out. And that's when they establish the governorship for Judea, which is the central part of Israel and Jerusalem. This time, from that time forward, is also filled with lots of messiahs and uprisings. Until finally, in 70 AD, the Romans say, I've had enough. They come in and they destroy the temple. They burn down. They take all the treasure from the temple, take it back to Rome, and they forbid Jews to live in Jerusalem. That's actually the beginning of the diaspora. This is the time that Jesus came to. This is the world that Jesus came to 2,000 years ago. Not so much the world where you feel like, oh yeah, the Messiah is coming and he's going to bring peace and bring peace to the world. Actually, the world full of violence. Violence. So, the Messiah. What were the Jewish people looking for when they were looking for the Messiah? And even the Old Testament, when it prophesies about the Messiah, they're looking for someone anointed by God who's going to restore the Jewish people to their original glory. There's all kinds of prophecies in the Old Testament that the Jews, all the world will come to cling to the robe of a Jew because you're the people. The Jews, you'll be the head and never the tail. And all the world, the Messiah will come as the king of all the kings of the world. This is who the Jewish people are looking for. And in this kind of time, they're looking for a fighter. They're looking for a warrior, someone who can overthrow these oppressors. Well, in this time, here's a list of some of the well-known messiahs. Most of these people, all of these are mentioned by a Jew named Josephus, who's probably the one main historical record we have of this time. If you look at it, there's Hezekiah, of course. He was the first one that Herod made his name on, Herod the Great. Then Simon of Perea, I'm not sure I pronounced that right. He was actually a slave of King Herod. And after King Herod dies, he goes off, creates an uprising, even goes to Jericho, and with his group, they burn down the palace, loot the palace, and all kinds of things before finally the Romans kill him. Then there's Anthrogenes. He's a shepherd. He also proclaims himself as the Messiah from the line of David. He's a shepherd, just like David was. And he has a group going around attacking the Romans and attacking the Jewish leadership that was supporting the Romans. He also finds captured and killed. Then there's Judas the Galilean. Judas the Galilean is really the time when Jesus is probably for the first 10 years of Jesus' life. Judas the Galilean was a very active figure. And Galilee, right? Isn't that where Jesus comes from? That area? Galilee, actually, when you read the history, is the Romans considered a huge trouble spot. Even the Jewish leaders, Galilee was where the problems come from. And even Nazareth. But Judas the Galilean, for maybe 10, 15 years, he waged guerrilla warfare all around Israel, particularly targeting the Romans and leaders. Eventually, he was killed by the Romans. And then we have Jesus of Nazareth. Actually, in Josephus, he's just mentioned briefly. Jesus, 3 years public ministry, right? 3 years. A small group of followers. Kind of a footnote as far as Josephus was concerned, Yeah, and as a result, actually, Josephus writes more about the church after Jesus. James, the brother of Jesus, who was the head of the church in Jerusalem. He writes a lot more about him than he does about Jesus, because Jesus was not so significant. But James, he was actually a very significant person in the community in Jerusalem. And then there's Menachem. He actually is the son of Judas the Galilean. He actually becomes the head of this group called the Sicarii, and that's actually a genuine terrorist group. They go around, they murder officials, all kinds of. They're responsible for murdering the high priest in the temple because they weren't Hebrew enough. It was trying to get back, and this Menachem basically proclaimed himself as the Messiah before he was finally killed. He had a huge following and movement. And then Simon, the son of Giora, he actually proclaimed himself the Messiah in Jerusalem. This was actually near the end of the of the Jewish Empire in Israel. The Romans have come and they've been suppressing activities all around, and finally it concentrates into Israel and into Jerusalem. And there's all kinds of factions fighting inside of Jerusalem. Well, Simon gets them all together and proclaims himself the Messiah. He even gets a crown and a fancy robe and everything. So he proclaims himself the Messiah, and for 3 years they have peace inside of Jerusalem, because the Romans actually, they get called back to Rome, so they kind of leave Israel alone for a while. They get things straightened out, they come back, and the Romans in effect say, I've had it with these Jews. They wipe them out. They go in, they invade the city, they destroy the temple, they burn it, they take all the riches back to Rome, and Simon actually is taken back to Rome and crucified in Rome. So, lots of messiahs, right? In history, these other people, the person who's spoken the least about is Jesus, from the historical record of the first century. So, of all these people, who do we remember? Jesus. On that list of people, who has had an influence in every country of the world through Christianity? It's Jesus. The person who had the shortest ministry, the least amount of followers, and as far as the historians would look at in that first century, he did almost nothing. In fact, his followers were better than he was. So what is it that makes the difference between these people, some who had huge national level movements to bring about change, and yet they're all just footnotes in history? You wouldn't even know about them if you didn't read the history book, right? But Jesus, everyone knows the name of Jesus Christ. Why? Why? We're celebrating this Christmas holiday and gifts and all this kind of stuff. Why? There's something distinctly different about Jesus. And it wasn't just that he taught, what he taught. Almost everything that Jesus taught, most of his teachings, you can find in other rabbinical teachings. It wasn't completely, so many of the things, this only comes from Jesus. Actually, there's lots of rabbis that have written and spoken this kind of teaching. That's why even in the Jews at that time, he's no big deal. He's not so special. He's just another guy proclaiming to be the Messiah, right? The difference is that Jesus is the original true human being. There is something different substantially about who he was. And the fact that he existed and lived made a difference, transformed human history, just because of who he was. Now, as Unificationists, we know that there's a lot of spiritual things involved. That the world is much bigger than just the practical and the external thing. From the external point of view, all those other messiahs, they did a lot more than Jesus did. Much more. But because of who Jesus was, transformed human history. And this is something important for us to reflect on, even as we think about the founder of our movement. There's many people that are celebrating, important, significant people have made powerful changes in the world around us even today. Think of Martin Luther King or Mandela, who just passed away. Very significant people doing important work, God's work, I would say, in the world. And people around the world are recognizing them. But when our father passed away, really it was much less significant. But because of who he was, human history is being transformed. And because of who we are in response to that, we are transforming history in our lineages and our lives. So, Jesus, as the original, true human being, what's the value that he has? Here's some of the quotes from the Bible. Jesus says, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you, may they also be in us, so that the world may believe that you have sent me. Jesus, one in heart and mind with God. This is what the Unification principle says. It says, there is no greater value than that of a person who has realized the ideal of creation. This is the value of Jesus, who surely attained the highest imaginable value. The conventional Christian belief that in Jesus' divinity is well founded, because as a perfect human being, Jesus is totally one with God. In fact, the principle of creation elevates the true value of all people, that includes you and me, who fulfill the purpose of creation to a level comparable with Jesus. So the first value of a true human being, the value of Jesus as a person who fulfills that purpose of creation, is a divine value. Jesus has divine value. Here's again from the divine principle. Just as there is an inseparable oneness between mind and body of a true person who's centered on God, there is an inseparable oneness between God and a true person. A true person experiences the heart of God as his own reality. Such a person is a temple of God, in whom God can dwell continually and comes to possess divine nature. Jesus Christ was the first person to actually accomplish that. To be a person whom God could dwell in completely. Become that true, genuine temple of God. So that divine value, being a person that's inseparable from God. And then the unique value. God created human beings for the purpose of sharing joy with them. Every human being possesses a unique, individual character. No matter how many billions of people are born on the earth, no two will ever have exactly the same personality. So that divine value that we have, hence, that person is the only one in the entire universe. That's each one of us are the only one in the entire universe who can stimulate that distinctive aspect of God's nature to bring God joy. Every person who's completed the purpose of creation is thus a unique existence in the cosmos. So each one of us is unique and special, designed to have divine value and be unique beings that can stimulate uniquely God's joy in God and joy in the people around us. And then finally, cosmic value. A person who has completed the purpose of creation can govern the entire universe, possessing both spirit and flesh, spirit and body. He can rule the spirit world with his spirit self and the physical world with his physical self. So this is the value of the example that Jesus brought as a true man. First time in human history where God has a genuine landing place on the planet, that God can dwell on the earth through Jesus. This is a profound moment in history. We talk about the key breakthroughs, like with Cain and Abel, the breakthrough that Jacob and Esau had. Finally the foundation for the Messiah was laid. Here, 2,000 years ago, God finally has a condition. He has a human being who's able to accomplish that first great purpose in life, to become one in heart with Him. This is what we're celebrating. This is what we celebrate when we celebrate Christmas. There's lots of, we of course remember Jesus' words and His teachings, but even more profoundly, who Jesus was. And similarly, in the day and time we live now, we celebrate our founder, Father Moon, Reverend Sun Myung Moon. The work that he's done, the many organizations that he established, the great teachings that we have that help us and guide us. But most profoundly, that who he is And especially that he was able to create a family, and who father and mother are as standing in the position of true parents. And who we can be as children who inherit from our true parents. This is the amazing gift that we have in our life on the foundation of so many years of suffering, of difficulty and struggle. So, each one of us is meant to have this kind of value, this divine value, unique value, and cosmic value. We inherit an incredible foundation, and we have to make something of that, right? How do we accomplish those purposes of creation? Remember, what are those three great purposes? First purpose of life is to become a true love person, right? And the second great purpose is to create a true love family. And the third great purpose? To have a dominion of true love, to be a true love owner, to take care of the things of creation, right? So becoming a true love person, let's practice loving God, investing in that relationship with God, living in attendance, paying attention to God, listening to God, allowing God to work in our hearts and minds and in our lives, to grow in our nature, to develop our unique character, the unique talents and abilities that each one of us have, so that we can use them to bring joy to God, to bring joy to the people around us, and also to bring joy and happy and fulfillment for ourselves. And the second great purpose, that creating that true love family, and ultimately a worldwide family of God's love, it starts with us caring and loving for each other. Start to practice it in our family, right? But with our neighbors, in our community, in our faith community we have here, with the people we know at work, at school, in our neighborhood. Being people who can connect with each other, mutually supporting each other and encouraging each other, so that we can multiply goodness from the family to the community, society, nation, and the world. And then that dominion of true love, taking care of our creation, the things around us. These are things we all know. Fortunately, we have the culture has developed in time so that we can appreciate these values of caring for creation and nature, being good stewards, and using our gifts, our talents, our skills and abilities, our wealth, our prosperity, to make a positive difference in the world and the world around us. So, we're called to this. Becoming a true person, a person of true love. Creating a true love family and expanding that to the whole world. One family under God. And having a dominion of true love. In our lives, we have a precious opportunity and a precious foundation to build and to accomplish these things. Here's some words from Father Moon I want to conclude with. Jesus says, Father Moon spoke about Jesus. He says, "You may not have much to be proud of, but God should be able to say that you are a true family member of Jesus. That is, you should be able to become a person with whom God can live forever, and whom God, Jesus, and even you can approve of. A heavenly family member who can manifest the glory of God. Such is the person for whom God has been looking, and for whom Christ has been looking, and whom you hope to become." Let's become those kinds of people. Please join me in prayer. Well, I ask all of us just to reflect for a moment, meditate as we think about the foundation that Jesus laid through his life 2,000 years ago. Please express your gratitude in your heart to God for sending Jesus. And then think on the amazing foundation that had to be laid in order for our true parents to be here at this time in history. And if you know and recognize true parents as the Messiah, reflect in this minute on how God is working in your lives to see each one of us become those true sons and daughters, create those true families, and be true owners. And if you're not familiar with Reverend Sun Myung Moon, open your heart to explore and look at the foundation that he's laid. Research the teachings, share with church members, and seek out God's guidance. Who is this man alive at this time in history? Maybe not as obvious and significant as many other figures, but yet, because of who he is and the foundation is established, human history is being changed. Please join me as I offer this closing prayer. Heavenly Parent, thank you, Father, Mother, God, the way that you love us, the way you've never given up on us, the way you've always persevered to bring good in this world. We're so sorry when we see the evil and the suffering. But know that we have confidence that because of who you are, your unconditional love and your absolute determination to bring healing, that there will always be hope, no matter what. As we celebrate the birth of your Son, Jesus Christ, 2,000 years ago during this Christmas season, pray that we can each remember and open our hearts to your expression in our own lives, that we can fulfill that destiny as divine, unique, and cosmic people who bring healing and love to the world around us. So as your sons and daughters, grateful for your love and for your blessings, we offer this prayer in this time together. Amen and adieu. Okay, let's please take a moment and turn and share with your neighbor.